So we talked about the different sources of finance that the companies have, whether it is in the from public or longest term borrowing in the form of shares or equity shares or preference shares within that. Let's talk about the things further now. That is the types of preference shares. There is a variety of preference shares. When it comes to the equity shares, it's only of one category. But when it comes to the preference shares, there is a variety of it. Why variety of it? Because every company wants to give the preference shares according to the needs of the respective investor. And for that purpose, we have the variety of preference shares. Within that, very first is based on accumulation of dividend. कि अगर आपके पास प्रॉफिट होगा तब न जाके आप डिविडेंड बांटोगे, अगर प्रॉफिट नहीं तो डिविडेंड नहीं, चाहे वो इक्विटी शेयर्स हो चाहे प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स हो। जब भी प्रॉफिट होगा पहला प्रेफरेंस आप प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर को ही देने वाले हो, उनको फिक्स डिविडेंड मिलेगा, उनको प्रेफर्ड बेसिस पे डिविडेंड मिलेगा। पर अगर प्रॉफिट ही नहीं हुआ तो आप डिविडेंड कैसे बांटोगे? तो प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर वापस नाराज, हाथ धोगे, यार तुमने कहा था हमको डिविडेंड मिलेगा, पर अब तुम कह रहे हो कि प्रॉफिट नहीं हो रहा है, तो हमारा तो नुकसान है। तो हमने प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स को कहा तुम चिंता मत करो, तुम्हारा जो भी डिविडेंड है, क्योंकि इस साल हमको प्रॉफिट नहीं हुआ इसलिए हम नहीं दे पाए, पर अगले साल तो प्रॉफिट होगा ना, तो अगले साल जब प्रॉफिट होगा तो हम लोग सिर्फ अगले साल का नहीं, इस साल का भी डिविडेंड उसमें जोड़ के दे देंगे तुमको। That's what we call as based on accumulation, that is cumulative preference shares. Cumulative preference shares are the shares where the dividend of 1 year, if not distributed because of unavailability of profits, gets accumulated to the next year's dividend. And like this, the cumulative preference shares are preferred. Unless otherwise specified, the company issues the cumulative preference shares only. Radhe, do you have a question? All right. Whereas जब आपका डिविडेंड एक बार अगर प्रॉफिट नहीं हुआ, डिविडेंड नहीं दे पाए, तो वो साल का डिविडेंड लैप्स हो जाएगा. दैट डिविडेंड विल नेवर बी पेड टू इवन द प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स. In that case, it is called as non-cumulative preference shares. But as I said earlier, that the company, unless otherwise specifies, will be issuing what? The cumulative preference shares. The next category is based on redemption. That is redeemable preference shares and irredeemable preference shares. What do I mean by redeemable preference shares? The redeemable preference shares are basically those which can be redeemed, converted into cash after a specific period of time. Whereas irredeemable preference shares are those which will not be converted into cash at any point in time. फिर वो शेयर होल्डर नाराज कहता है, यार तुम लोग अगर हमको पैसे वापस देने ही नहीं वाले हो तो फिर हमको प्रेफरेंस शेयर की जरूरत क्या है, हम लोग तो इक्विटी पे इन्वेस्ट कर लेते. And that's why none of the preference shares can be redeemable beyond a period of 20 years. The maximum tenure for which you can issue the preference shares is 20 years as per the Companies Act of 2013. So, in the current scenario, there is no concept of irredeemable preference shares. You will only have the redeemable preference shares. The third category based on conversion. We call these as FCPs and PCPs and NCPs. Nationalist Congress Party nahi. FCP is fully convertible preference shares. PCP is partly convertible preference shares. And NCPs are non-convertible preference shares. What is fully convertible? After the pre-specified, I repeat, pre-specified tenure of the preference share, when those preference shares get converted into equity shares in totality, It is called as fully convertible preference shares. The fully convertible preference shares are not redeemed against cash. The fully convertible preference shares are redeemed against the equity shares, and therefore those are called as convertible preference shares. Whereas at the time of redemption, at the time of completion of the tenure, at the time of expiry of the pre-specified period, if the preference shares are partly converted into equity shares and partly paid off by cash, those are called as PCPs, partly convertible shares. And when at the time of redemption, at the time of completion of the tenure, if the 100% amount against the preference shares have to be paid in cash, not even a single part of that preference share get converted into equity, such preference shares are called as non-convertible preference shares. So primarily it can be categorized as what? Convertible, non-convertible. Convertible का मतलब क्या? Which can be converted, which can be transferred into equity shares. And non-convertible means against which you will surely be paying cash only. Generally speaking, the companies issue the non-convertible preference shares. Unless otherwise specified, the preference shares being issued by the companies are the cumulative, redeemable, non-convertible preference shares. The last category in that is based on participation. Now, what is this based on participation? जब भी कंपनी के पास सरप्लस प्रॉफिट होगा आफ्टर गिविंग द प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड, प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स को डिविडेंड देने के बाद अगर कंपनी के पास एडिशनल प्रॉफिट बचता है, वो एडिशनल प्रॉफिट नॉर्मली इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स के लिए होता है. बट अगर आपने प्रेफरेंस शेयर होल्डर्स को उस इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर वाले डिविडेंड में भी हिस्सा दिया, तो देन इन दैट केस दोज आर कॉल्ड एज participative preference shares and not the non-participative. Understand? Participative preference shares. Understand what these are? You have got the total profits. That is profit after taxes before dividend. Total PAT. PAT means what? Profit after tax. This is appropriable profit. The profit available for division and distribution. From this, you first pay what? Preference dividend. Preference dividend. And after paying the preference dividend, this profit which has been arrived, this is your profit after preference dividend. This profit is generally available for equity shareholders. All right. But if preference shareholders are also allowed to participate in the distribution of this profit, in that case, these preference shares will be called as what? Participative preference shares. Did you get that? उनका हक सिर्फ उनके डिविडेंड पे नहीं, मतलब ये कोटा का जो रिजर्व कैटेगरी होती है ना, कि एडमिशन लेते समय हम रिजर्व कैटेगरी में पहले खड़े रहेंगे, पर रिजर्व कैटेगरी अगर खत्म हो गई तो जनरल कैटेगरी के लिए जो अवेलेबल रहेगा उसमें से भी सीट हम खाएंगे। द सेम कंसेप्ट इज अवेलेबल एप्लीकेबल हियर, कि हम हमारा प्रॉफिट तो खाएंगे प्लस जो इक्विटी शेयर होल्डर्स के लिए अवेलेबल है उसमें भी हम लोग हिस्सा मारेंगे। दैट इज व्हाट इज द प्रेफरेंस पार्टिसिपेटिव शेयर्स। एंड नॉन पार्टिसिपेटिव मींस व्हाट, जिनका हक सिर्फ उन्हीं के डिविडेंड पे है, who cannot participate in the further profits of the business after distribution of preference dividend. Those are called as non-participative preference shares. So unless otherwise specified, generally the shares which are issued by the company are what? Cumulative. Redeemable. Non-convertible. Non-participative. So unless otherwise specified, the preference shares will have these all features within it. All right. Cumulative, redeemable, non-convertible, non-participative preference shares. Cumulative का मतलब मैंने क्या बताया था? Suppose in the year 2018-19, the company has got the loss of 5 lakh, and the this is profit oblique loss, preference dividend. इस साल में कंपनी को डिविडेंड देना था से 50 लाख रुपए, प्रेफरेंस डिविडेंड. So because of loss, no dividend will be distributed. But in the year 2019-20, the company made the profit of say 2 crore. All right. अब क्योंकि कंपनी के पास 2 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट आ गया, मतलब डिविडेंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर सकती है. दिस इज प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स इज व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. They won't distribute only 0.5 crore current year and 0.5 crore previous year. So total dividend that will be distributed in the year 2019-20 will be 1 crore and not only 50 lakh if the preference shares are cumulative preference shares. Had this been non-cumulative, then no dividend would have been added up. मतलब in that case 50 लाख रुपए 2018-19 का नॉन क्यूमुलेटिव प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स के केस में लैप्स हो जाता, would not have been paid. Did you understand the point? Yes or no? Yeah. So that's about the preference shares. Now how do we assess or how do we understand? There are any disadvantage? क्या है बेटा, कि आपको सिर्फ एक फिक्स रेट ऑफ डिविडेंड मिलता है, आपको मार्केट ट्रेडिंग नहीं मिलता है. जब आप इक्विटी शेयर के इन्वेस्टर हो तो आपको फ्लक्चुएटिंग रेट पे भले डिविडेंड मिले, पर कई बार बहुत ज्यादा डिविडेंड मिलता है एज कंपेयर्ड टू द प्रेफरेंस शेयरहोल्डर्स. दैट्स द डिसएडवांटेज नंबर 1. Disadvantage number 2, appreciation in the market value. In the case of equity shares, you get good amount of appreciation in the market value, whereas in the case of the preference shares, you don't get that appreciation. So that's the point of difference between the two, right? Yeah, of course, voting rights are not there with the preference shareholders. The equity shareholders have the voting rights. All right. This will be the case of cumulative preference shares. All right. Yeah, preference shares can be transferred from one person to another. There is no restriction on that when it comes to the public company. All right. Okay. Agar, if you have been given something like that, 12% cumulative preference shares for 10 years. For 10 years. Means what? This 12% is annual rate of dividend. This is specifying type. अगर ये नहीं भी दिया होता तो हमने assume किया होता वो cumulative ही है. But this is redeemable, non-convertible, non-participative. 10 years is the period after which shares will be redeemed. Shares will be redeemed. Am I right? So that's how you identify the preference shares. Am I clear for everyone? Yes. Now let's come forward then. The next part, that is the types of debentures, is what we have to talk about now. All right. Now what is this types of debentures? Let's observe it. Debenture is what? A debt which is taken against the security. Against the venture, against the business. That's what we call as debenture. Now, debentures are also issued of the multiple varieties. Based on security, there can be the debentures which are secured debentures or unsecured debentures. Today, I have to finish off with this theoretical part. There are, I think, 2-3 more slides remaining. So we'll just finish off with this pravachan today so that we can start with the practical aspects. Based on security, the debentures are divided into secured debentures and unsecured debentures. Secured debentures, मैंने पहले आपको explain किया था. Generally, the debentures, whenever those are issued in the form of secured debentures only. Why? Because no one will prefer the unsecured debentures. Unsecured debentures में invest करना होता तो हम लोग deposits में invest करते हैं. हम लोग debentures में क्यों करते हैं? Right? So all the debentures, generally speaking, has the floating charge or control on the floating charge or control on the floating charge or control on the assets of the company. So that's about the secured debentures. Generally speaking, the company issues only the secured debentures. Unsecured debentures are not issued by the companies in the current scenario. Similar to the preference shares, even the debentures can be the convertible debentures or non-convertible debentures. Just 1 minute. We are talking about convertible and non-convertible. This is similar to the preference shares. In the case of preference shares, as we talked about FCPs, NCPs, and NCPs, similarly, even in case of debentures, we can have FCD, NCD, and the PCDs. But we don't have any CCD here, because CCD is on the roads now. So FCDs are what? Fully convertible debentures. Any debenture which at the time of redemption, which at the time of completion of the debenture term get converted into equity shares, those are called as fully convertible debentures. But if a part of debenture is converted into equity and part of it is paid off in cash, then in that case, those are called as partly convertible debentures. But when 100% of the amount is to be given in cash, it becomes a non-convertible debenture. So generally speaking, the companies issue what? The non-convertible debentures. Secured non-convertible debentures. The third category within that is based on redemption. Again, I'll repeat the point that there is no concept of irredeemable debentures. There will be only the redeemable debentures. क्योंकि हम लोग अगर लोन भी irredeemable देंगे तो उसका फायदा ही क्या हुआ? फिर हम लोग इक्विटी में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं ना, right? Therefore, there can only be the category of redeemable debentures. Yeah, based on transferability or negotiability. If a debenture is freely transferable from one person to another without communicating to the company, those are called as bearer debentures. The debentures which are issued by the company without registering the name of debenture holder and which is issued along with the interest warrants, जो interest के checks होते हैं उसके साथ साथ वो debentures issue किए जाते हैं, then in that case those are called as bearer debentures. Currently, none of the company issues the bearer debentures. All companies issue the registered debentures. ये क्यों हुआ करता था? क्योंकि earlier there used to be the physical format of debentures. और फिजिकल फॉर्मेट होने की वजह से हर समय हर डिबेंचर होल्डर तक इंटरेस्ट का चेक पहुंचाना वाज अ डिफिकल्ट टास्क एंड देयरफॉर एज एन अल्टरनेट मेजर दे हैड इशूड द बेरर debentures. Whereas in the current scenario, as every mode is electronic, therefore it has become easier for the purpose of companies also to make the issue of debentures on registered basis, and that's what they do. So currently all the companies issue the registered debentures, and the last category in that is based on priority, that is based on first charge and second charge. Means what? That the debenture holder, जब भी company पैसा पे करना चालू करेगी, अगर कंपनी वाइंडिंग अप में जाती है तो उस समय पे कौन से डिबेंचर होल्डर को पैसा पहले मिलना चाहिए, कौन सा डिबेंचर होल्डर को पैसा बाद में मिलेगा, that is based on their control on the assets of the company. So that's what is first charge and second charge. अगर सपोज कंपनी के पास लिमिटेड पैसा है तो लाइन में पहले कौन खड़ा रहेगा? लाइन में पहले वो खड़ा रहेगा जिसका चार्ज पहला है. मतलब this is decided by the company from time to time whether debenture holders should all have the same kind of priority or that priority should change. And of course these all things are mentioned at the beginning itself. Now here again, if you want to categorize these debentures, then what kind of debentures that the company issue, let's observe it. Generally speaking, the company will make the issue of debentures which are generally, the company issues what? Secured non-convertible redeemable non-convertible redeemable registered debentures having first charge. अब ये सेकंड चार्ज वाली कहानी कब आती है? जब कंपनी ने सेकंड इश्यू ऑफ डिबेंचर्स किया. So in that case, the company can have the debentures with second charge also. All right. Now, how do we assess again? Suppose it is given 12% convertible or partly convertible debentures of rupees 100 each issued at ... for 5 years, interest payable at 6 months rest. Now, how do we assess this? How do we understand this? Of course, the very basic that you must have understood, 12% is what? The rate of annual interest. This 12% is always presumed to be par. This is per annum interest rate. Partly convertible means what? This is type. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि some part of these debentures will be converted into equity shares and some part will be paid by cash. कितना part? जो already terms condition में mention हुआ होगा. Which means these are secured, redeemable, registered first charge preference, debentures with the part of it convertible. This 100 is the face value of debenture. All right. If the company fails to pay the interest, then there is any penalty. There is no question of it. Interest is a charge against profit that is not dependent on whether you have got the profits or not. If you do not have sufficient profit, then in that case, that will automatically get accumulated to the next year. And you'll be required to pay the interest on interest. And if the interest is not paid for a continuous period of 3 years, then in that case, the debenture holders automatically get the voting rights into the company. Debenture holders, like preference shares, do not have the voting rights in the company. But if the debenture interest is not paid for a continuous period of 3 years, then in that case, those automatically get the voting rights in that. All right. Then this 100 and issued at, issue can be at par, premium, or discount. Please understand, shares cannot be issued at discount, but debentures can be issued at discount. So when issue price is equal to face value, it is called as issue at par. When issue price is more than face value, then in that case, it is called as issue at premium. And issue price, if it is less than the face value, it is called as issue at discount. All right. The next one, that is 5 years. This is the tenure for which these debentures will remain within the company. And 6 months rest, what this indicates? That interest is payable at every 6 months. This is indicating what? Interest is payable every 6 months. Interest get accrued on half yearly basis. You can also say interest gets accrued on half yearly basis when it comes to the given debentures. So that's how we do the analysis of the debentures. जब भी वो डिबेंचर की लाइन दी होती है, एक डिबेंचर और प्रेफरेंस शेयर दो टाइप्स में आ सकते हैं ना? Yes, it can. There is no problem, no restriction on that. All right. Yes. Shall I go ahead? ट्रांसफरेबिलिटी का मैंने क्या कहा, अगर वो बेरर डिबेंचर होगा तो आपको कंपनी के पास डिबेंचर्स को ट्रांसफर करने के लिए नहीं भेजना पड़ेगा. But if those are the registered debentures, then in that case you will be required to send the debentures to the company for getting it transferred from you to someone else. That's the point of difference between bearer and transferable. Bearer means bearer check. मैंने किसी को भी दे दिया, वो सामने वाला बंदा जाके पैसा रिडीम कर सकता है या नहीं. बट अगर वो अकाउंट पे ही चेक होगा तो कंपलसरी मेरे ही अकाउंट में वो चेक डालना पड़ेगा, फिर मेरे अकाउंट से दूसरा चेक इशू करना पड़ेगा सामने वाले को पैसा ट्रांसफर करने के लिए. सो दैट वे द रजिस्टर्ड डिबेंचर्स वर्क. Shares can't be issued at discount, then what they will do if demand of share decrease? Please, we are talking about trading in the primary market. जब कंपनी अपने शेयर पहली बार मार्केट में इश्यू कर रही है, in that case you can never have the shares being issued at discount. That was misused by various companies, and that's why SEBI in their guidelines through the Companies Act 2013 has stopped that particular concept. We can buy something like cumulative redeemable preference shares. Yes, you can, but the rate of dividend in that case will be fixed. You have to remember that as well. हमारे पास बहुत लंबी चौड़ी लालच होती है, तो हम लोग फिक्स डिविडेंड पे कहां सरवाइव करेंगे भाई साहब? Isn't it? Let's come back to the last part of our discussion in the theoretical aspect. Some important terms which are necessary to be discussed from the perspective of company accounts, because these all terms will be frequently used at multiple of the places. The very first in that is face value. वो झाग की value, isn't it? वो हमने जो कल सीखा ना, झाग value. No. Face value is basically the value of the share or debenture being recorded in the company's accounts or credited to the capital or to the debenture account. This face value is nothing but the division of the total capital of the company into the parts, the number of parts that the company has decided as per its memorandum of association or as per the board resolution wherever applicable. Issue price is the price at which the company is issuing the shares to its shareholders for the first time. We are not talking about the trading in the share market, stock exchange. What we are talking about, the issuing of shares by the company directly to the shareholders. So face value is the value they will credit it to the capital account, and issue price is the value that they will be getting from the public. If the issue is at par, there is a difference between the issue price and market price. Also, I'll come to that. If the shares are issued at par, then issue price and the amount by which the share capital get credited, that will remain same. But if the shares are issued at premium, if the shares are issued at premium, that means the issue price is more than the face value. Then the amount of face value will get credited to the capital account, and amount of premium will get credited to a separately opened account for that purpose called as Securities Premium account. All right. Market price has nothing to do with the company's accounting. Market price is the price of a share decided in the share market. Market price is the price at which you buy or sell the share in the share market on the stock exchanges. And that's why nothing of this goes to the company and therefore there is no question of accounting for that. For company, market price is just an event and therefore not recorded in the books of company. Securities premium, I've already talked about. When the issue price of share is more than, or debenture is more than its face value, in that case, the additional amount which the company is garnering, getting from the shareholder, is what we call as securities premium. Why companies will be asking for the premium is because company has created the huge intrinsic value for it. Company is having multiple of assets. and because of those multiple of assets, they have got the wealth increased as compared to the capital that they have. तो कैपिटल का इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू, इंटरनल वैल्यू बढ़ गया है और वो बढ़े हुए प्राइस में शेयर को बेचना चाहते हैं. उन्होंने शुरुआत 10 रुपए से की थी, पर आज उनके शेयर की वैल्यू 100 रुपए हो गई है, नेटवर्थ की वैल्यू 100 रुपए हो गई है. तो वो कहते हैं कि मैंने मार्केट में से 10 ही रुपए क्यों मंगाने हैं, मैं अपनी नेटवर्थ मंगाऊंगा. तो 10 रुपए का शेयर वो कितने में दे रहे हैं, 100 रुपए में. आउट ऑफ दैट 100, 10 rupees get credited to the share capital account and 90 rupees get credited to the securities premium account. Please understand, securities premium is a profit of the company, but this profit has to be utilized only as per the provisions of section 51 of the Companies Act of 2013. These funds cannot be used for any purpose in the form of distribution as dividend. It is a capital profit which has to be utilized only for the pre-specified purposes. What those purposes are, we'll be discussing in the times to come. Issue at par, when the shares are issued at the value of its face value. When face value is equal to the issue price. We have already talked about it. When issue is at a price more than the face value, it is called as issue at premium. And in the case of debentures, there can be issue at discount, but in the case of shares, there cannot be the issue at discount as per the Companies Act of 2013. An existing company, when brings the shares to the public in general for the first time, it is called as initial public offer or IPO. What we are going to discuss is the accounting of these IPOs only. These initial or FPO, that is follow on public offering only. That is, we are going to talk about the trading in the primary market. We are not going to talk about the trading in the secondary market. Primary market means what? When the shares are directly issued by the company to its shareholders, then it is called as the trading in primary market. But when the shares are traded on the stock exchange, that is called as trading in the secondary market. Our whole discussion will be focused only on the primary market and accounting aspect of that. शेयर प्राइस कैसे डिसाइड होती है, वो कौन डिसाइड करता है, इसके बारे में हम लोग डिस्कशन नहीं करने वाले. दैट इज ऑल रिलेटेड टू द सेकेंडरी मार्केट. व्हाट इज अंडर और ओवर सब्सक्रिप्शन? मान लो कंपनी को अपने 1 करोड़ शेयर्स मार्केट में पब्लिक में देने हैं और पब्लिक से जो एप्लीकेशंस आई है वो सिर्फ 90 लाख शेयर्स की आई है. तो देन इन दैट केस इट इज कॉल्ड एज अंडर सब्सक्राइब्ड इश्यू. Whereas अगर 1 करोड़ शेयर्स के अगेंस्ट, बिकॉज इट इज इन्विटेशन टू ऑफर, आपने लॉ में सीखा होगा इन्विटेशन टू ऑफर, ऑफर एंड सेल. देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन द थ्री. कंपनी does not make the offer to the public. Company ask for the invitation to the offer and then public apply for it. That's why it is called as offer. तो अगर पब्लिक एप्लीकेशन 1 करोड़ शेयर्स के अगेंस्ट आपको 1 करोड़ 50 लाख शेयर्स के लिए आया, तो दैट एक्सेस ऑफ 50 लाख शेयर्स व्हिच इज called the excess applications will be called as over subscribed issue. तो जब आपको number of shares applied for is more than the number of shares to be issued, then in that case it is called as over subscription. Am I right with everyone? So these are the basic points that you have to observe, understand and remember, because these will be frequently coming in our discussion. All right. And we'll be having the detailed discussion on everything when it comes to the actual accounting aspect. In fact, जब issue of shares होते हैं in the primary market, that can be done in lump sum, that can be done in installment. What is that lump sum? What is that installment? How do we do the accounting for that? ये सारी चीजें हम लोग हमारे अगले लेक्चर में डिस्कस करने वाले हैं. Is the point right? So that's it for the day. We'll be meeting in the next session, that is tomorrow. Thank you.